What's up, everybody? Charlie Bathgate here. I'm the CEO of Sang Lucci and Wall Street Jesus, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Smiddy. Smiddy, say what's up to everybody.
Hey, nice to see you guys.
So Smiddy has been a part of our community for a bit now. He is a graduate of the master course, and he's somebody who in our room, in the chats, people have definitely been taken notice of, and he's active in the rooms and talking, and he started posting some things that we were just really taken note of in terms of kind of a fascinating transformation and a story that we wanted to, zero in on. So we hit him up and said, hey, would you ever want to come on, talk to the community, tell your story a little bit? And he agreed. So here we are. That's what we're doing. So Smitty, I want to go straight into it. I mean, you posted a message the other day that was accompanied by, a six-figure P&L, and you said, I started sweeping the warehouse and detailing cars, and
Yep.
now you're posting P&Ls like that. Tell us, connect the dots for us. Give us the story. How did this happen? What's going on here? Yeah.
Okay.
Give us the story.
Well, good to see everybody. So to kick it off, I think just briefly where I started trading, grew up in, a lower middle class family. So money was always tight. And from an early age, I kind of knew that we weren't on the wealthier side of the tracks. So I wanted to get that economic, understanding and how to not be poor under my belt, right? So mom gave me some Kiyosaki books, started reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, all the kind of the classics, right? That as a youngster you can understand.
Yeah.
And quickly kind of translated that into, if you want to make good money, you need to be in a money business. And I kind of looked towards Wall Street, had some family from New York, an uncle who had a board seat at one point who sold that, gave it up because he was a bozo, but we'll let that be.
Different story for a different day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another day. But really wanted to kind of break into that, a different class. I didn't want to grow up and be, just wage working. Both my parents were. Neither of them are college educated. I'm a little bit. But again, that's, we'll get to that thesis here in a little bit. But just started reading the books, went through high school, college, and really didn't have a direction. So I was okay at school. I did decently, but I wanted to fool around more. And again, kind of going back to that, what do I want to do? Do I want to trade? Do I want to work in real estate? Something just outside of the standard. I'm going to go to business school, go work at, XYZ company and kind of go through that grind.
Right.
So around, let's see, it would have been 2015, I started reading a book on Forex. That was my senior year. Graduated, moved down to Austin, was working at a NASA aerospace funded company. So I was physically building a little UAV. Nothing fancy, but that whole time, again,
cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was neat to build, and the results were great. But read a Forex book and really was like, you know what, this is what I want to start doing. Studied technical analysis, hopped on TradingView, and started going through every educational piece that they had to offer. I kept notes on Elliott Wave and all the little technical stuff, right? And that was kind of where I got my foot in the door. I started trading with FXCM as well. So they had a little $2,000 margin account. Mm-hmm. So Forex at the time was the easiest barrier to entry, right? I could come up with the $2,000, threw it in, and started just chopping it up, trying to make, little hits here and there. Really didn't understand what I was doing. And, that's where we start learning, right? You got to know what you don't know first. Yeah. So first big trade that I hit was actually Brexit. I was sitting down at the bar by the apartment, saw the news come through, literally sprinted out of the bar up to the apartment, logged in, tried to start shorting the pound. I think I made, it was maybe 25% on the account. So, pulled down $500, thought I was an absolute genius. And then I blew up the account 3 weeks later. So, and then I got the tax bill, and that was really fun because, blowing up that size account, you obviously didn't account for taxes. Yeah. So that was a fun story. Kind of set me back. So from there, I ended up getting another job down here, worked, and kind of through doing that, was running a CNC machine at a guitar company. And just the whole time, I would work my ass off, ended up employee of the year. It's Collins Guitars, great instruments. But the whole time it was still, I want to get out of this. I want to get out of this working, 8 to 6 every day on machines, busting my ass. How do I do it? So I went back to Forex and pulled that Forex account up. So while I ran the CNC machines on the right side on that PC, I'd have all my stuff up and sit there and chart. And, these programs would run sometimes 45 minutes. So I had time. It was around that era, 2016, 17, a buddy came to me with Bitcoin actually. And he was holding a bunch of Bitcoin for, doing online shenanigans. And he said, hey, have you seen the price of Bitcoin? It went from, $500 where he owned a bunch to $1,200 or whatever the price was. And I was like, why am I trading Forex? Let me go look at this crypto nonsense.
Right.
And so, dive down that rabbit hole, traded crypto for a while, made some money doing that. We mined Ethereum, and that was a good little gig we had. We sold everything and actually took all that money and kind of ran with it. And that was kind of what got me into trading on leverage really heavy, right? So I took all my proceeds, went to BitMEX and levered that up and blew up the account. Yeah. So that was, it was like 3 Bitcoin. For me, it was a good chunk of money at the time, right? I was 19, 21 years old, 20-ish, or no, 22. So again, blew up that account. And that was kind of the pivotal day where I knew that I wasn't going to let that take me out of the game. Like I had to make this work because it was devastating, right? I felt like I was starting to get on that path of like, hey, this is how you make, a couple $100,000, and completely blew it all up. I had my family at the house and everything. Literally, I closed the laptop and I was like, all right, I'm liquidated, and didn't even know. Kind of like we had to go to dinner. We had a whole night planned, and I just had to eat that loss. It was a really emotional time. And, I did the psychology course as well with you guys. So mastering emotions is obviously a big part of it for us. That was the hardest pill to swallow. Like to sit there and go to dinner after losing whatever it was, $40,000, right? And then sit down for dinner with all these people and have to just eat it metaphorically and literally. That was it. And, from that point on, it was read everything I can, every podcast, every book, cramming info in. And that's what I did. I studied technicals. I had to, from that point, I was liquidated. I had pretty much no money left. We have, you and I spoke about my wife, but she slipped both joints in her jaw. So it was, that was an expensive surgery, and we didn't have health insurance. So that was one that kind of had to climb out of that hole.
Yeah.
So while that was going on, once I was liquidated, kind of knew that this was for me, but obviously you're in the hole, right? Like no money, no job, no trading funds left, which is the big thing for most of us. If you don't have a seat at the table, right? It's hard to come back from that. So I did what anyone else would do in that point. I went and got a job. Fortunately, my father was working with this individual, and we'll get into him now, but he's a philanthropist and a business owner down here in Austin. He's been here most of his life, owns a pretty big gold bullion company, and has a big car collection, art, a lot of fun stuff. So they needed extra hands on deck, and they were willing to just bring me on to sweep the warehouse, take care of the cars. He'll swap out cars. So I would literally go in the mornings and I would detail his 5 cars at his condo, fill everything up, which was nice. I got to go drive around all the sports cars and all that fun stuff. So there was cool perks there. But, the whole time that was so I could get back into trading. And I just worked and worked. He was at the warehouse one day and saw me running from the office to the back. He had like a little car shop. So I'm running back and forth to do everything, get his cars taken care of, detailing. He would throw me crazy things. Like he would ask me to, one great example was he wanted his McLaren 720 like waxed in a day and like fully clay barred, everything. And so I said, okay, you got it. And I went and got the car and knocked it out. And I don't think he thought I was going to bring the car back and it perfectly done. And that's exactly what I did. Till, I was there till 8 o'clock or whatever, but it didn't matter because when I returned the car, guy was stoked. So he had seen me, kind of seen my work ethic. Yeah. And one day he was in there. I had fired back up Thinkorswim, trading a little bit of options, right?
So at this point, you're dabbling with options a little bit.
Yeah. And again, just for the leverage sake, right? I've got a little bit of a leverage problem over here that I like to use it.
Don't we all?
Right. And so that was to me bang for the buck, where I could go make that $1,200 bet and try and hit the 10 grand, right? Because I'm just trying to get back to at this point, if I had 100,000, I was going to be a happy guy. he saw me trading one day and was like, "Yo, like, what are you doing on the iPad over there? Like, why are you running back and forth and back to your iPad?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm trading options." He was like, "Well, are you any good at it?" And I was like, "I think I'm all right." I had hit, it was right around COVID at this point, right? So that was what, early 20. I hit a nice silver trade. I think I did about an 8x on the SLV. I believe I was real short, just short, like through the put. It was like $20 puts, price tanked to I think $12. I made a killing, showed him that, and he was of course impressed by the multiple return, right? So he said, "Why don't you come to my condo and we'll do this? We'll see how good you are." So he brought me down there one day. I go up and this guy answers the doors in his boxers and a t-shirt, and we went and sat and opened up his Thinkorswim, and he pretty much was like, "What do you do and how do you do it?" And wanted me to just start trading with his money. And the account was about 6 million at that point. So it was, for me, a massive amount of money. And this guy was just like, "Yeah, do kind of play around, do your thing." He's a very interesting character, quite eccentric.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, well, for a guy, my age at that point, I'm 24, 25, and he's just like, "All right, here's the account, I'm going to go make other calls, see what you can do for the day." We did okay. I wouldn't say that those returns were incredible, but again, I think he liked my work ethic and my ability to kind of pivot, and he'll ask the most insane questions, and that's where I find the answer for him, and he's super stoked. We ended up getting a Bloomberg terminal. So we did that for like 6 months. We kind of kept them on the hook on the trial. That was really cool. A lot more than we needed. So I eventually got him to kind of calm it down, and said like, "Hey, I don't think a Bloomberg terminal is going to give us the edge that we're looking for."
Right.
I was spending more time trying to figure out how to use the terminal than I really was executing anything. Right. And this, again, a guy who thinks that because that's what the pros are using, that's what Wall Street uses, that's what we need. And I'm like, look, his famous saying is, "We're Johnny Lunchbucket with a pocket full of money." I mean, and that's how he trades. So that's what I manage on the daily. So we continue trading, got him into crypto a little bit. By this point, we're kind of rolling along. He gave me a $500,000 account to manage on my own. So he added me as the authorized user, gave me the $500,000, said, "Trade that," kept the other, whatever it was. At this point, we were up to like 6.5 in the major account. So he would run that. He put on the size positions and kind of, call me in the morning, give me the market update. I always keep a watch list with his important stuff that he likes. And I would just shoot that over, kind of give him a synopsis in the morning. Like, "Hey, I think X, Y, and Z is happening. I think that S&P looks good. I think today, we talked about in the call last night, I think we get a little bit of the underbellies this week. And we're kind of seeing that today, right? Now we need follow through." So I explained that to him. He's a CNBC watcher, so that's kind of where he's taken most of his market insights and wisdoms from. And so having me actually like drilling down, diving deep is what really gives him edge. And again, I'm just looking for edge. That's something throughout this process that I've learned from you guys. What's our edge? You can gamble any day of the week, right? You want to show up and just throw money around, the market will happily take it from you. Right. I'm trying to build a system that is lasting. So from there, I think this is about the time that, listening to Chris Irons, shout out fucking Chris Irons and QTR podcast.
QTR, baby. Love it.
Love it. Love the half-baked commercials. But I kept hearing about you guys. And then, I look up, I'm like, who is this Sang Lucci guy? He brings him on. He's a hilarious guest. I believe you were on there at one point, right? I think you guys did a good interview. Yep. And so I'm seeing you guys and hearing you however often he puts out podcasts. And I finally hopped on and was like, what's the steam room? I did the trial. And then I start seeing, the Master Course commercials here in the Master Course. And I was like, well, I need the edge. I knew I was okay at this, right? I was doing decent. I can look at technicals all day. Couldn't read tape, right? That was a big thing, is that I could look at technicals and say, oh, the moving average is doing X, Y, Z, but it didn't mean anything. There was what was the value of saying we crossed over the 20-day? Like I didn't have like a great reasoning or logic. So to me, the Master Course was kind of this is going to be partially a solution for my lack of a system. And so we hopped in there and, kind of learned how fiery Lucci is, and really learned a ton from all of you guys. I mean, to to summarize, the master course, I think is difficult because everybody brings something unique, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
like you and Chris Cady bring in some of the psychological stuff, you know, and that really helps me a ton. I love some of Chris's trading axioms that he has, right? The, you know, you don't have to play every day. Wait for the fat pitch, right? Some of those, you know, some days they hand out the $1,000 bills. Make sure you're at the table on the day that they do that. You know, that was last week for us when you guys saw that big P&L.
Yeah.
The market was just handing out the money. We just happened to be positioned properly. What you guys didn't see on that big P&L, we're sitting at almost 1.5 for the year over here. We had a $900,000 drawdown. Monday, Tuesday, I was down 400K each day. And I tried to share that too and say, hey guys, like, you know, sometimes these positions sound really big. And I know some of the guys in the room think, oh, he's welching. It's not, you know, you don't really have that position, but it's real money over here, I promise. And we're really holding those drawdowns.
Yeah.
Guy that I work for is, you know, he's okay eating those. He'll call me up and say, hey, I don't want you stressed out about the, you know, minus 400. It's going to come back around. I would have cut those positions, honestly, and eaten. So we literally round tripped that from 1.3 all the way down, all the way back, and now we're at 1.5. So
held some pain.
Yeah, it was very painful. And to be honest, all I can do is look back and say, if I didn't have some of the great guides from Master Course, the psychology course, you know, with Peter and Chris, it, you know, those helped me significantly to sit there and look at it and say, it's just money. We're playing a game here, right? It's, you know, Lucci jokes, it's entertainment purposes. It kind of is. And for a guy of this status, like, he doesn't stress about those small drawdowns. Like up 90 on 93 right now, he doesn't really care about a $93,000 win on the day. It makes my job easier, but it's hard for a lot of us because that 93 in a day is a crazy amount of money. You know, like that's
a good year for a lot of people. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it's trying to embrace that, trying to play this game from a different level, coming from, you know, 2018, 19, I'm blowing up accounts with, you know, maybe 30, 40,000 in them, to like the one account was, you know, 30, 40, but to now managing, we're at 17.5 million on this. So it's a big account. I know, again, the P&L sounds big at 1.5. It's about 9% for the year. So, which is still a great return. It's only February. Like, we're just cracking.
We're 2 months into the year, man. So that's very good.
Yeah, it feels nice. But again, his goal is about 33%. So we're shooting for 5 million. And that's going to be bare minimum. I really feel like we have to hit 5 million, you know, and that's just my drive to outperform the market, right? I want to beat Citadel this year. I want to sit there and look at them. He had me call them last year. They wouldn't even take my phone call. And when I said, hey, would you guys take 30 million? They kind of laughed me off the phone. And I was like, what an interesting experience, right? You think that most anyone in this universe would say, oh, another 30 million, tack that on, right? Take the management fees and whatever we get off the top of that, that'll be a good year for us, right? And Citadel said, no, don't care. So now I want to beat them. That's a little vendetta we've got. But
a little chip on the shoulder.
We'll see where we're at the end of the year. That'll be a fun one to revisit.
Yeah.
And so where do you want to go from here? Do you want to hear more about kind of
I got so many different directions we could go.
All right,
I mean, let's start with you know, just how you're trading right now and how the Master Course impacted that, right? I mean, you touched on it. Obviously, you were using technical analysis coming in, then you learned tape. And, you know, it sounds like the trading psychology side of things was really helpful too. I mean, just even in the way you're talking about all of this, you can hearing some of the words you're using, you know, you're coming across as very grounded, you know, in the face of a lot of, you know, challenging situations and fluctuations in the P&L. So, you know, when you look back across the Master Course, are there a couple sort of, maybe let's start on the tactical side of things, like with tape, you know, moments when you look back and you're like, oh, light bulb just went off. Like, I just connected the dots. This is now how I see I have edge that maybe I didn't going into this.
Right. So I think that one of the biggest things, and I actually took some notes over here just to have it, but my idea of trading was more scalping, right? I love the idea of finishing the account in cash. We never do that over here. It's always hard for me on a Friday to hang up my hat with $9 million of risk on. Last weekend into a holiday weekend, same thing. Come Friday, I said, hey, can we reduce? Nope. So we got to carry that through the weekend, right? one of the big things was the ability, like Lucci's ability to trade size with conviction and then flip bias immediately. It's, and even to this day, when I watch him in the morning sometimes, because I keep the stream on all day, I still can't quite go from that I'm long the SPX to I'm short it within the same like 5 minutes, right? I'm gonna wait for something on that I see in the chart to be able to start saying, you know what, maybe I got this wrong. So it's really fun to have him, you know, every day, most days when he's in the office, to have him beat that home as well. Because that's something I think for most traders we can't do. We marry our bias, we bring it with us in the morning, and that's something Chris talks about as well. Is, you know, don't bring your bias to work with you. Like, I was bearish all last year, and I was wrong most of last year, right? Fortunately, we didn't have much risk on. Client wasn't really participating. He was vacationing and doing other house projects and stuff, which was probably better for me, right? He wouldn't let me put the money in T-bills, didn't really understand it, and didn't really want to take any kind of risk, which I respect. You know, it's, again, a guy who kind of knows what he doesn't know and says, that's not for me, no thanks. Which always lessons from that guy too, right? He's about 70, so he's got some interesting wisdoms and been in the market for a long time as well. But he trades kind of like Lucci does. He has conviction and he's got size, and he comes in. So sometimes what I take away from it is the things that, like, I may not be as good at reading tape as Lucci is, but I use a lot of TPOs in my charting, right? So that's where I can look at it and say, guy comes in with conviction. I look at the chart and say, you know what? I actually think that we've got a nice gap up. Let's go ahead and run with it. And so that's that yin and yang where we find a nice balance. And I contribute some of that to seeing Lucci and knowing that's not what I'm super good at. Right. And that's, I think, important for all of us, is you got to know what you're not good at in this game.
Yeah.
Sure. You know, and again, the drive to profit every single day is something that for me is, you know, it comes from that mindset of hunger and the kind of growing up, you know, socioeconomic on the poorer side of the tracks, where it's like anything I can put in my pocket for the day helps me pay bills and eat. Right. So for the longest time, adjusting that mindset now has been something to kind of reflect on and say, hey, it's very interesting now that I'm not in that needing to, you know, feed myself every day, and now kind of trading on a longer time frame, right? Looking at my bias and saying, like, you know what, I can still be short Apple, but long Microsoft and Meta all day and not feel stressed out about it.
That's the second time that it's really fascinating. You've used the word interesting to describe a circumstance that I think a lot of people would find really stressful and challenging. And it reminds me of how Chris always talks about choosing curiosity over anxiety. I mean, is that something you find yourself conscious telling yourself, like, hey, I'm going to take this path? Or did that just sort of naturally evolve, that you're like, oh, Citadel told me to go fuck myself? Interesting. Like factoring that into your process. Like, how does that go?
You know, I used to be a little more uptight about it. And again, I can't tell you how much I think the psychology course really, it changed my perspective on what I'm doing. We're playing the game here, right? This is kind of entertainment purposes. Jay was saying it the other day on stream. It's just money. Like, when you start looking at it as it's just money, you play the game a little differently, right? Now I want to go to work today to beat the casino. I want to take money from Mr. Market. I think that I look at something, you know, as opposed to being like irritated or mad about the markets, I have to take that reflective and say, this is kind of interesting. Where did I make a mistake? Where was where did I have edge, and where did I go wrong if I lost? We've had some winners that were bad trades.
Yeah.
A great example was we actually made a couple $1 million trading Shiba Inu coin. Client calls me. Somebody got in his ear and said, this is going to $1. He buys $2 million worth. It doubles. I call him and say, you need to sell that shit. And I've got the screenshots on it back in our text messages that I could pull up if the room wants to see, just to see it, because it's a silly win. But he would have held that to zero. If we had it his way, he would have held that from, you know, a double on and profiting 2 million to it would be worth zero now, and he would write it off and say, you know, which, again, crazy to hear that, but it's, you know, watch the guy take bigger losses, and so I'm kind of the guy who gets him out, you know.
And so in that circumstance, you're really displaying, I mean, your account just made a couple $1 million. A lot of people would be like, models and bottles, let's go, let's celebrate. But you're like,
Mhm.
no, this is
This
really
is
not
not
something to
right.
celebrate. Like this, we got
Mhm.
lucky. Let's,
Take your luck. If you get lucky, man, take it, and you be grateful for it, right? And
right,
that's
right.
he wanted 10 million. That's the hard part, right? Is you're just smoking hopium at that point. So there's no, I mean,
Smoking
there's
opium.
no sense. We can do that all day long, but it's,
Right,
that's not a good way to trade your money. So
right,
unless you want to lose it.
right.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of the story here. And again, it's still, we're still kind of evolving. So our process is not, we haven't found like a super consistent method, I would say. And
Yeah,
that's part of what makes this so interesting to me is that, again, I'm dealing with an individual who doesn't necessarily operate like the rest of Wall Street would,
yeah,
doesn't operate like a hedge fund, doesn't really want me to hedge anything, if I'm honest with you, which again is very difficult when when you've got size on. You would think, okay, let's sell some call options here. We're way in the money. Why are we
right.
not selling some calls and at least trying to generate that premium?
Yep,
I sit over here most days, and what I'm thinking about is, how do I start to cash flow his account, right? This is a big enough size that Kelman in the room mentioned. What he's doing is trying to generate that free cash flow for clients, right? If they
yep,
want 1% a month, by the end of the year, that's going to be a good return, and you hold your core positions. I want to start doing, I want to build our portfolio into that model. So
right.
again, something great about the steam room is that you have so many people in here of all walks of Wall Street, that somebody else is generating an idea that you can latch onto and say, you know what, that's a good idea. I should do that for my client. I should do
Hmm.
that in my, long-term portfolio for my family retirement, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
So again, I can't really stress enough to people watching this how the steam room has literally changed the way that I operate. It's, the Thursday, Sunday calls with Jay, which again, I think jumping into the new master course, we should definitely reiterate that to all the new members that, hey, these are things you have access to, the
Yeah.
daily stream. Because when I first joined, I didn't even know that there was a Sunday call. Like
Hmm.
my goofy ass hadn't looked at the calendar, so I
Right.
just didn't know. And then one day I see the stream, and I was like, Matt had posted the link to the recap, and I was like, this is every Sunday. Like, God, I'm fucking stupid over here. And so now it's, religiously I watch that.
Yeah.
And same on Thursdays. So they change, having that insight, having the information. To me, the institutional positioning, that shit matters, right? I was a Hedge Eye subscriber for a handful of years. Love those dudes, love their analysis. Um, didn't love Keith all the time, honestly. So I stopped paying for that service because I was like, you know what? I get much more out of what I'm doing over here with you guys, all the notes, everything Jay posts. That to me, this was, again, similarly priced for a year. I think Hedge Eye was maybe 3,000,
Hmm.
but great analysis. But I prefer this, so this is what I went with, and kind of let those guys go.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at.
Dude, so I mean, it sounds like you really came through the master course. And, I really got to give you a lot of credit with a really mature perspective, because I think some people come in, and I don't blame them. They're coming into trading and they're like, I just need someone to just give me an ABC
Mhm.
methodology. If
Yeah,
this, then that, just give me a really simple, plug and play strategy. And the truth is that when you are getting to a level of sophistication in your in trading and complexity, and you're looking at options and futures and stuff like that, that doesn't exist. And the more time that people spend in the markets, the more people realize, like, oh, I have to actually take a piece of what this person's doing, a piece from this person's doing, bring it all together, and piece it together into my own process that makes sense for me. And
right.
it takes a lot of I think confidence in yourself and
Mhm.
maturity to be able to kind of sit back and have patience and say, like, okay, I'll go through that process. Like, I don't need a guarantee of success.
Mhm.
I'm actually willing to learn from Lucci, put in the work, learn tape, see how I can use that, P that in, learn options from Ranch, how he's, managing long-term positions, bring that in. Um, I mean, so I want to give you a lot of credit for that, for one. And
Hey, thank you.
then, and you said a couple times, like you said earlier, after a big loss, I wasn't going to let that take me out of the game,
Mhm.
and then you said, I kind of knew this was for me.
Yeah.
How did you you didn't have like a family history of successful traders or anything like that.
No.
How did you just say like, this is for me? I know that I'm going to figure this out. It's just a matter of how. Where do you feel like that came from?
It's kind of funny there. So had two of my college roommates basically looked at me. We're all skateboarders, right? So I lived in a skateboard house. We literally had built a mini ramp in the front room. It was chaos. So, hanging out with a bunch of degenerates, right? And these are guys who are, going to school and just really partying and like kind of halfway fucked off all the time. And we're just here to skateboard and have a good time. I went to college for that reason, right?
Right.
I couldn't really afford to go to the university, so I was in Bloomington, Indiana at Indiana University, but I went to the community college. Well, when it came time to roll up from getting an associate's degree to, doing the bachelor's and doing all that, I couldn't afford it. And my logic was, this will be my first big trade thesis. I'm not going to spend, I'd rather bet $30,000 in the market than bet $30,000 on a bachelor's degree, because I didn't want to rack the debt up. Right. And that was a big one for me. Right. So in that process, saving money, want to get a trading account going, reading these Forex books, my skateboard roommates would look at me and basically two of them told me like, dude, you're never going to trade money. Like you're never going to work on Wall Street. Unfortunately, one of those kids actually overdosed and passed on. And then the other one, he's pretty successful. He works up at like Cartier and Tiffany's in New York. He does jewelry setting. So again, good for them. But hearing someone tell you like you're not going to do something when you're already, passionate and had been learning, and there's a little bit of a, kind of like the Citadel situation. Fuck you. I'm going to prove to you that I'm going to do this and I'm going to win on my terms. Yeah. So the big liquidation, it was the last nail in the coffin that I wasn't going to get into. And I said, this can't be the end of it. It just couldn't be. I can't really put it any more than that I was so excited about markets and learning and technicals that to blow it all up, I just was not willing to let that be the last part of this story. Yeah. And I mean, I didn't want to get another job either, but something had to give and I had $0 left. So it was, back to work. And that was really it. It's just, I will say skateboarding is one of those things that a lot of people don't want their kids doing it, but I think the grit and perseverance that you learn skateboarding is, that is something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. I think that's a big factor as to the why. I can literally fall down a million times and I'll just continue getting back up because that's just what I know. Not only that, but you get hurt a lot. You get hurt enough when you're jumping down stairs and shit that, after the 10th time jumping down a stair set, you think I would learn a lesson, but instead I'm going to go for the 11th try because something's wrong with my brain that I have to do the goal I set, right? I'm not giving up on this, or my body breaks and then I'll give up on it. So that's where I came from. I'm just unwilling to let something like that go. And that's the fight. I think that's the fight you need when you're in the markets, right? You show up and play with the best of the best every single day. If people were any smarter, this is where they end up, right? Because the smartest get paid the most here. It's why we manage the doctors' and lawyers' monies, right? So to me, this game is kind of it's the pinnacle in a way. And, like playing sports, you wouldn't go play on the NBA court with LeBron or name your favorite player. This is what we choose to do every day. We did show up today and decide, you know what, I think I'm going to go fight the market with the best of the best today. Let's
you are playing LeBron. Yeah.
Yeah,
like you
exactly.
are playing him every day. Yeah,
exactly. And, and they never take a day off. And that's the other thing as a small family office here, I guess is what we would technically be considered. It's myself and client, and that's it. I have nobody else. There's no other team. There's no other members in his organization that help me with any sort of trading or investing. Yeah. So it's super fun to me. It is like the ultimate challenge. And that said, I am perpetually reading or listening to some sort of finance podcast, book, whatever. Right now, Second Leg Down, great book. Anyone who hasn't read this yet, Harry Krishnan, really, really good. I think very actionable. Ranchero had mentioned last week that he doesn't like to read new trading books that don't give him like an actionable plan. I think that it's Brian Shannon with the like Anchored VWAP book. I need to grab that and read. But it was interesting because as I'm going through this is a very actionable book. So I would recommend it for, it's probably not the first options trading book you want to read, but it's definitely one for the more advanced guys in the room. Definitely recommend that. Been a really good one. So lots of information tucked in there.
Yeah. I mean, dude, you really, I'm just like really struck by, as you talk, how you embody really kind of like the prototypical master course student. You have so many things. First of all, I have a 15-month-old son, and I basically think you just convinced me that he needs to be skateboarding as soon as possible. Like we talk about skiing and surfing and tennis a lot here because there's a lot of people in our company who do those things, but not as much skateboarding. And I think I'm gonna get him skateboard for like his 3rd birthday. But that like tenacity, that knowledge of, I know that there's edge out there. I know there's opportunity out there. I see all these people out there doing it. They don't have anything that I can't do. I just need to figure this out. I need to put in the time and do it. And we don't get people in the master course who are like Googling options trading for beginners and then they come to us, right? The people who come to us have been around for a couple of years. A lot of times they have a strategy that's like kind of working, but as you said, they know that they need a little bit more edge. They know that what they're doing isn't totally sustainable, or they've gotten slapped around and they're like, I really don't have any edge right now. I haven't figured this out, but I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to do this. I'm willing to like put in the work, move past the people who are giving me, sort of false promises of how easy this is, and actually sort of get my hands dirty and do it, And I feel like you just, you had that. You had that like dogged determination and then that chip on your shoulder. I mean, it reminds me of Lucci. It reminds me of Chris. Like these guys, Ranch for sure, people who had been told at various points in their lives, like, you can't do this. You're not going to make it. You're, for whatever reason, kind of being put down by the system and just being like, fuck you. I can, like,
right. If that's going to be so, then I'm going to make sure that I have a hand in tanking myself. Right. So,
right.
And
if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down my way, I guess.
Bingo.
Yeah,
exactly.
On my terms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's, I am one of those people. I would take the hard path anyways. That tends to be the way that I go with everything in life. I don't know why. Apparently I haven't hit my head hard enough yet, but that's a lot of us. Right. And Ranchero's story was great where he, I think it was post the divorce, right, where he had a rough time for a little bit there. And it's, I will say the vulnerability to hear those stories, right, for him to share that with an entire group of people he doesn't know. And, these people are learning from him. Like to me, that mattered, right? That showed that like, hey, this is someone else who kind of had the same beatdown moment you had, right? And look at where he's at now. Every time we see that beautiful sunrise over there in Hawaii, I'm sitting over here like, I need to catch up to Ranch over there.
Dude.
It's gorgeous.
Kills me. It looks like a green screen. We get people on YouTube who are like, this is bullshit. This isn't real. And it's like, well, it actually is real.
Yeah, it does. It looks like a straight up Zoom background over there. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, I could talk to you for a while about, kind of the tactical side of things, but I feel like a lot of people in the room probably know a lot of that, And I'm thinking about for people watching, like, obviously you've been through the master course, you came on here there to talk about things. There's of course an inherent bias in this, but, I am curious about what you would say to somebody who's on Twitter. They've seen Sang Lucci, Wall Street Jesus. They, they're intrigued, but they're like on the fence. Should I do this course or whatever? I mean, what would you say to somebody who's considering, making the evaluation? Should I take the master course or not?
Hard to sum it up into like one statement. I think what's fascinating to me is, again, like, obviously Lucci had a rough end to last year, right? With the account, I was out for a few weeks, and when I left, he was at about 900 and I came back and he was doing a fresh account challenge.
Yep.
Nowhere else have I ever seen someone who will get on every day with you, lose $1 million, and show up to work the next day and still laugh and joke, right? Like he seems like he's in really good spirits for losing that kind of money. And I know that it's rough. And I know part of that is just showing up to be a good pillar of the company and everything. But nowhere else are you going to see this kind of honesty and transparency. And there's a lot of folks in the room who still post those losses and Warrior Eddie G was one of them. He's had a rough year last year and was talking about that. Ozzy, big hitter over here in the room, he hit I think 700K the other day, and he was like, I'm at break even, guys. So again, sometimes you see these big P&Ls, these big swings, big trades, and if you don't hear the backstory, you're getting the Twitter highlight reel, right? Where people are, oh, look at me, I've had 13 green days in a row. Well, congratulations. But what does a red day look like? Because when my 2 red days hit last week and it was 385 and 400 each day, fucking you want to go break something or jump out the window or whatever. Like, you're not doing well. And if you don't have your psychology down, those days are going to fuck you up.
Yep.
Like 2023 definitely it did a bit of a number on me because I was getting chopped up left and right. That was most of my year, was just chop. And even in that smaller account before I got the keys to the big account, small account was just, it would be, up 10K and then 3 days of down 2.5. And then I'd be sitting there like, what am I doing for the week here? Like, these commissions I'm making on, that kind of trade aren't worth it. Right. So there were definitely times, and, the company that he owns, the CEO and my wife are great friends. She's been trying to steal me to go over to their company because she wants me on their team. And I keep telling her, like, she's offered me crazy amounts of money, and this is what I like to do. Like, I can't fathom going to sit in their sales floor and managing all the guys who are making, some of these kids are making 200 and 300K a month. And I just don't. Yeah, it's a pretty wild company, honestly, but I just don't want to be doing that. I don't want to be running a sales floor. I'd run a trading floor. If you guys need another, if we need another trade space, we can get one set up here in Austin. No problem. I'll run that all day.
Right.
But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at, right? This is what I'm passionate about. I love this to death. I love this game to death. It's something that, I'll start dabbling in other businesses. I had a paint protection film company that I was starting up with a kid. And it was taking a lot of time and too much of my effort. And I told him, I was like, look, dude, you don't even need to pay me back. Just keep running. He's doing well. But I couldn't spend the time PPFing cars every day, right? Like, I love playing with cars, but at the end of the day, it was taking all of my time. And all I think about doing other stuff is, hey, what's the market doing? Why am I not sitting at the seat, right?
Yeah, you got the bug. You're just... Yeah, your mind is in it. You're fascinated by it. You're curious about it. Yeah, you got the bug, man. I mean, you need it. You have to have that. You have to have that degree of just fascination and obsession, because it leads you to that drive that you had, that you were talking about. You're always reading, reading, listening, searching for new edge, new answers, and as you said, you guys are going out there playing against the LeBrons of the markets every day. Like, you got to have that drive.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, I feel like this is probably not going to be the last time that we have you on here, because what you're doing and is such a fascinating thing to go from, starting young and finding your way and, starting how a lot of people start, crypto, Forex and stuff like that, and then getting to the position that you're at right now, relatively quickly. It's fascinating. So I don't think this is going to be the last time we have you on, but I super appreciate you, doing this one, coming on and sharing a little bit of your story.
Yeah,
I mean,
please do.
Is there anything else, that you would, parting words that you want to say to everybody in the room? Or
no, I think, I'm only 30, right? So I'm pretty young. I think a lot of the guys were talking the other day, and it seems like a lot of folks are a bit older. So for the younger guys joining the room, you've got plenty of time, right? Look at this as entertainment. Learn, take your time. You're going to blow up accounts and you'll make it back, right? You're going to, more than likely, a lot of us have to work a job so that we can get our seat at the table. That's totally okay. I think there's this dream and fascination for a lot of younger folks that want to hit the GameStop trade. Fun story. I am really good friends with one of those kids. He's 23 years old. He hit that $4.5 million GameStop trade. Ooh. He's retired. He started working at a crypto venture fund up in Boston. Hilarious guy. Doesn't trade much, but when I met him, he was bringing sports cars around, and I was like, what is it? Like, who is this kid? I go ask him. Sure enough, he eventually kind of came clean and was like, you know about GameStop? He saw me in here in my office and was like, so you know about GameStop? And I was like, yeah. Kid literally smoked it. He sold the top. Like, you couldn't have done it any better. But if you talk to him, it was a $6,000 account.
Oh.
So yeah, that's kind of what I think a lot of the younger generation is dreaming of, that, and they want to be the Wall Street Bets kid. And now the big thing is for him not to give it back, right? Is how do you maintain that? So for the younger folks, like, it's a long game. You got a long time in this game, If you're going to be trading till you're maybe 50 years old and you're 25 or 24 right now, or maybe 20, like you got the whole game in front of you, right? And I know, I know everyone wants the money, you want the $1 million, people need the Lambo or whatever, but I will also say those things won't fix anything, right? The cars don't fix anything. I might know a guy who buys every new car when it comes out, and it's great, but it doesn't change anything. And so if you want to play this game, play it for the right reason, right? Come to the table knowing that part of what you're doing is trying to master yourself. It's part of why we need the master course, right? Is like, you've got to learn yourself. You've got to understand, am I a Lucci trader? Am I going to hit those, everyday trades, cash out and move on with my day, go play some beach tennis and not, sit in front of the screens every single day, all day? Do I want to be like the rancheros, right? And kind of swing with some leaps, trade with some time, try and get those, longer term. I mean, he's killing it in Costco. That is one of those trades that I looked at it about I think after that earnings, it dipped to 460, didn't pull the trigger, and have been just kicking myself ever since, right? As he's rolled like 7 times now. And then you have Jay, right? Lately, that's kind of how I've been trading. More common stock, playing the equity side, usually just using the options to hedge, and I'll take some gambles here and there. But that's been, kind of how we've been running it this year, right? So it's interesting because you get a little bit of everybody's style. And I think that that's what people need to take away from it. Master yourself, learn what you need to be successful in this game, and then focus on that,
Love it. Couldn't have said it better myself. Super appreciate you doing this. Yeah. Congrats on, all the hard work and everything like that. I know that you don't feel like you're at the mountaintop. You're just like one step, forward on the journey. So, but congrats for just the way that you've approached everything, the energy that you bring to what you're doing, and super appreciate, the presence that you have in the room and what you bring there. So we're certainly a better community for having you and traders like you in there. So super appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Happy to be a part of it. Thank you guys for providing this service. It's pretty incredible. And, the growth, what you guys are doing, I think is really awesome. I think that the live stream all day, I know it's probably a lot for everybody. Well, besides Jay, I know he's always at the computer, but
right. He doesn't, he's a robot. It doesn't matter to him anyways. Yeah.
Dude, that man seems to be posting all the time. And I'm impressed, but it's, it's nice. This is a pretty lonely game we play, at least for me. Like, I'm just at my home office. This is where I spend most of my time. So it's really nice to have some people talking, joking around, have the people in the chat who are responsive and keep it active. So long as we don't get too far off topic, we don't get a Matt Money police on us. But but yeah, man, it's the community is amazing, and it really, it's a tough job. On the tough days, it's a lot better to have some people to joke with and chat. So a lot of people don't understand what we do. It's, I don't really tell anyone in my friend groups or anything kind of what our returns look like. They still don't really get what I do, even though I've showed a handful of them like in person, and they're still just like, so you just like buy and sell? And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. That's how the market works. Exactly. Right. But it's nice to have that group, and, winning days, losing days, it matters. So, thank you guys. Thank the whole community. And excited to see where this goes.
Most definitely, man. Super appreciate it. And, you'll have access to this next master course. It starts on March 25th. So, anybody who comes in might be sitting next to Smiddy in there if you're auditing, classes or going back through, seeing how they teach new things. So maybe we'll see you March 25th, but obviously we'll see you in the room every day. Yeah. And super appreciate you doing this.
Yeah. I'll pop through the master course. I'll definitely, I want to be there to help some of these new members too. They can always message me, shoot me a DM. Happy to help in any way that I can. Advice, books, whatever it may be, podcast. I'm here for it, man. I want to see more people succeed.
Love it. Appreciate it, Smiddy. Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Charlie. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Take care.